All right. Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Tonight is Thursday, September 26, 2019, and we are tracking two systems currently tonight in the Atlantic Basin. We have a very weak tropical storm Karen centered south of Bermuda that has essentially hit her blocking in the road and is now going to wander in this area and now is more likely to dissipate than she was a day or two ago. And we also have big ol' Hurricane Lorenzo out here, a powerful Category 4 hurricane with some time left for additional strengthening, and it is already beginning its more northerly jaunt and will generally move to the north and then eventually curve back to the northeast over the next few days. So these are only two players here this evening. There are no other areas of interest in the Atlantic to talk about. So we're going to go ahead and just hit these two guys real quick. So we have Hurricane Lorenzo and a little more zoomed in satellite image this afternoon. This is a very impressive storm. We see a nice tight central dense overcast around the eye here. Lorenzo went through an eyewall replacement cycle this morning and then underwent a period of rapid intensification, going from a Category 1 to 2 storm yesterday morning to a Category 4 storm this afternoon with 140-mile-an-hour estimated winds. We do not have Hurricane Hunter information for the storm. It's kind of far away, and there's really no point since it's not coming to land, but or going to affect land anytime soon. But that is the current estimate, and it could be a little bit stronger. Over the last few hours, we've seen this northern eye wall kind of wrap around, and right now we have a very healthy full ring here around the eye that does appear to be shrinking a little bit. So Lorenzo may be getting ready for another eye wall replacement cycle. Kind of early to tell, but regardless of, this storm will be a very powerful storm. And in fact, as far as the central tropical Atlantic goes in this region, this is the second furthest east Category 4 hurricane on record. The only one that formed further off to the east was, I believe, Julia in 2010. And as far as general strength is concerned, the only other storm that was about this strong in this area was Hurricane Gabrielle in 1989. So definitely a very rare thing to see a huge Category 4 hurricane just sitting in the middle of the tropical Atlantic. Typically, these waves come across and they ride as waves, and then they develop more around here or up here. Whereas Lorenzo decided to get himself going way earlier. So definitely an interesting anomaly of a storm. But again, the only threat to land will be later this week as the system does curve up and away. The Azores Islands off the coast of Portugal may have to deal with the storm as it passes by. They don't get a lot of hurricanes. They do get pretty strong storms that come through, especially in the wintertime, like winter low pressures that swing through can definitely get them some strong winds. So they'll be on the lookout for that, but that won't be for a few more days. I would expect Lorenzo to strengthen a little more, possibly get near Category 5 intensity, and then fall back as the trough begins to pick it up. Wind shear and water temperatures will kind of knock that storm off a little bit. Let's go ahead and talk about Tropical Storm Karen this afternoon, the 5 p.m. from the Hurricane Center. Looking still pretty bleak for our friend here, Karen. It does not appear she's going to get a chance to speak to the manager because she's likely to dissipate in a few days. Her maximum sustained winds remain at 45 miles an hour this afternoon, but her satellite presentation is pretty grim looking. We still have her upper level low off to her east, or I'm sorry, to her west. That's kind of pulling away, and high pressure generally dominates around to the north of her. And she's sort of caught in a couple different steering flows that are all trying to pull the system apart. The Hurricane Hunters flew it earlier, and they found the surface circulation was more elongated. It was kind of being pulled off to the north, sort of. And despite this one burst of thunderstorm activity in the center, that it has remained consistent. The storm is not exhibiting really any sort of banding features or consolidation of a center or development of a stronger vortex. It's just kind of floundering around in this environment. And there's really a few reasons for it. But generally speaking, from the top to the bottom, in the upper levels, Karen has this upper level low to her west, a high to her east, and this is sort of pulling the air apart. You can see the vortex is trying to show up in the upper levels right here, but essentially you have the air leaving one direction and leaving in another direction, and it's sort of pulling away from the storm's ability to kind of wrap up and then go down to like 850 millibars in the low to mid levels. And you can see that it's just really chaotic. The environment around her is chaotic. There's some southerly wind shear being imparted on the storm. And if I go down to the surface circulations here, you can see her surface circulations even being pulled on by by the remnants of Jerry up here, actually trying to pull her circulation away, and it's not allowing it to wrap around. And that's sort of elongating the attempt at the circulation center right there. So everything kind of considered, Karen is just really struggling this afternoon. The high pressure just offshore here is fairly dry, and it's putting a little bit of drier air towards the system as well. So that's just one of the things that are just continuing to pile on. And all that considered, the Hurricane Center does now dissipate the storm in a few days. This is shown by our computer models. We look at the latest intensity guidance. Most models are still holding on to barely tropical storm strength, but many models now are falling below tropical storm strength by 36 to 48 hours, including most of our global models, the GFS and the European model. Looking at their ensembles, neither model now carries the storm as being any sort of deal here. The European model essentially unanimously pulls it off to the northeast, and then on that loop attempt, pretty much they all just break it apart, and only a couple show any sort of attempt at a reorganization, which the environment probably won't be very good as what leftovers of Karen do track off to the west, and it does appear unlikely at this time she would have a good chance at reforming as she moves towards Florida. And if she got to Florida, she'd probably just be a slight rainmaker, if anything. But just not doing well. The GFS, as far as the persistence of the thunderstorm activity goes, this is a forecast satellite over a couple days, and as you see here, Karen still looks like she's hanging on right here. But as I advance this model through the day on Friday and into early Saturday, the GFS completely just has what's left of the convection the system's producing just fall apart in about 36 hours. So it looks like Karen will meet her demise probably within 48 hours, if not a little bit sooner. And that is about all we have for you tonight as far as active storms, guys. Those are the only two out there. We're not watching any other areas of interest in the Atlantic. The Pacific has got a lot of activity going on. They're about to see a couple more storms form up as these storms really move off to the north and the west. We have some activity in the Western Caribbean, but right now it just looks like mostly scattered thunderstorm activity. Doesn't look like anything organized. And the only thing we're watching going into October is going to be kind of as the pattern flips to more of a fall to winter variety. We still are expecting some tropical activity in the main development region, the Atlantic. We typically don't see activity in October in this area, but it does appear that conditions will continue to be conducive for further development in the month of October in the central Atlantic. And then going into mid to late October, we always have to watch the Gulf of Mexico as Lorenzo's remnants move off. This should help kickstart this more winter jet stream pattern, and that should force the jet stream to dip more over the eastern United States. And as that jet stream dips more with those fall cold fronts, sometimes tropical activity can be coaxed out of the Central American gyre, and sometimes we can get storms that move up into the Gulf of Mexico. And then just generally cold fronts that hang up on the coast of Florida can sometimes spin up storms if they have enough time. So that's what kind of we're focusing our attention to. But the short to mid-range forecasts tell us to keep watching the tropical Atlantic for the next week or two for additional activity, as those waves that come off Africa may still have an environment to strengthen in. So that's what I got for you this evening, guys. As always, appreciate you watching, and have a good one.